Hello everybody and welcome back to Guys on Gaffr, and welcome to part 2 of our 4-part series previewing all 24 teams ahead of the 2022-23 Gaffr Championship season. And I'm once again joined by David and Abhishek and David's dog Felix, who was not asleep before but is now asleep, which is a shame. I hope Felix wakes up at some point and shows his face a bit more. Anyway, that's by the by. How are you two?
Yeah, doing all right. Can't wait for the season to start. Getting a bit bored now. Too long of a break, but it's good with all the transfer news happening around, with all the players moving to England, especially, and so it's a good thing that we will be seeing week in, week out, all those players that we used to see in other leagues and Champions League only. But this season, a lot of players have moved to England, so it's a nice thing. Although I think some teams, some championship teams, do need to do some business because they are looking quite a bit flat. So hopefully, the deal gets done.
That could be a theme in today's video, actually, with some of the clubs who are really needing a few signings. Yeah.
Desperately.
Yeah, indeed. David, how's things?
Yeah, I'm doing fine. I've kind of gotten over the super many drafts phase.
Yeah.
So I'm I'm not touching my draft as much as I've used to, but I'm seeing more and more players staying in the drafts, even though I'm making a few. So I guess that's good. But during these pods, I'm getting new players to look at. So it's about to get even more hectic. The coming weeks.
I'm the opposite, because for all my games I did first drafts and I just left them for a while. The game's launched, let's have a look at the prices, make a draft, and then try and leave it for a while, to not just spend the whole preseason just overthinking everything and burning myself out before the season started. But I'm now in the planning stage. So I did boost planning on Sunday, and that changed my draft quite significantly. So I think I'm in full flow now, which is exciting. Anyway, let's go on with the video. So we had 6 teams last time, we've got 6 teams again this time. I think it's 5 videos, 1 audio clip. Some of these were recorded in the last couple of days. We're recording on Monday the 18th of July, but there are a couple that were kind of submitted around a week ago maybe. So a couple of things may have changed, but nothing significant and nothing that should kind of mean that anything the fan correspondents are saying, there'll be nothing that kind of diminishes that and takes away from what they've said. So it should be a really good video. All the videos are very, very good, and thank you all for your contributions again. It's great to hear from fans, because obviously you have that deeper insight into the team that we struggle with, particularly as it's a league that we've only been following for a few years, so it's really, really useful, and hopefully we will have some food for thought for our Gaffr teams. I know I certainly have, from what I've been listening to. So without further ado, let's get into our first video, and our first team is Blackburn, and we've got man on pod Dronach, Darren, who is going to take us through the best Blackburn assets for Gaffr.
Morning. Guys on Gaffr would like me to do a 5-minute video on Blackburn Rovers for you, summarising their transfer window. What's one of them? Who are the best team's Gaffr assets, obviously, because this is all about Gaffr. And where do we expect to finish this season? They want 5 minutes on this. I'll struggle, I'll be completely honest with you. First and foremost, we got John Dale Thomason as our new manager. That was probably the best signing we could have made this season, actually getting a manager. Well, what can you say? The jury's out on whether or not he will be a success. I really hope he is. Seems like a really nice guy. There's a lot worse people you could have got in as a manager. Steve Bruce, West Brom, that kind of thing. You know what I mean. Sorry, West Brom fans. But yeah, so I think John Dale Thomason will hopefully do a good job. He's got 2 weeks to make some signings, which brings me on to our transfer window and the lack of. We haven't made any signings. We have lost a lot of players. So obviously Dara Lenahan's gone. We've lost Van Heck's gone back from loan. Zifyuk has gone back. I don't think we decided to sign him permanently. I think that's from Hertha. Who else have we lost? Obviously Lewis Travis. Joe Rothwell's gone. Niambi has gone, and obviously we've lost Kadra, isn't it? Kadra as well has gone. There's one or two others, but they're kind of my standout ones. So we are really, really limited in terms of our squad depth. So we really need to make some signings. And that's the good thing about Blackburn, is they are very good in the loan market. So, you know, chances are they will hopefully do some loan deals. Maybe John Dahl Thomason could pull some strings and get some of his fellow countrymen in. You know, they're always pretty good. So let's hope that is the way we go. But yeah, summarising my transfer window, not great, if I'm honest. Who are the best Gaffr assets in? Who are the best Gaffr assets? Is the next question. It's very, very difficult to tell you who the best Gaffr assets are. I can't even speak this morning. Sorry. It's really difficult. I don't like any Blackburn players within my team, and I don't have any. And I don't know if that's because I'm a Blackburn supporter and I don't want to be disappointed, but the only one you potentially have is Brereton. I'm still not confident he's going to stay. I do think within the next 2 weeks someone might try and poach him. Someone who wants maybe that squad depth player in the Prem might, you know, thinking of Adam Armstrong last year with Southampton. If he stays, he's 10 million in Gaffr. There's so many people around that price point that potentially will be better. I wouldn't think of Gallagher or Butterworth up front. Midfielders, obviously we've got Dak back. That's like a signing in itself. Will he remain injury free? Will he remain fit? Does he look even interested anymore? These are all questions that need to be answered for Dak. So 6.5, there's better players out there. You can get O'Hare for 0.5 more, for instance, and he's just going from Coventry to Burnley, and I think that's great. So there's people around his price point. I would rather get one of the 6.5 defenders in than spend 6.5 on Dak at the moment. Doolan at 6 million isn't a bad shout. I think he'll nail that spot on the left of Brereton this season. We've got McCanday as well, who we signed last season. He does look good, little fella, in all fairness, but very whippy. I think he'll do very well this season. He's got a point to prove. Obviously, at the end of last season, we got him in, and he was showing signs. So good shout at 5.5 if you're looking for someone maybe potentially to put on your bench and play every now and then. Defence the defence is nicely priced. So Pickering at 5.5, I think Pickering is going to be fantastic this season. I think it will be Blackburn shining light. So really hoping he does nail a spot and is really good. But again, 5.5, you can get other decent players for 5.5 that will keep clean sheets and potentially assists. The two I'd shout out are Rankin Costello and Eden at 4.5 each. If you want a cheap way into a Blackburn defence, if they start doing well, that would be your cheap way in. The only other one is our keeper, Kaminsky, who was very good last year. He is a great keeper. So hopefully he'll get you some save points. Clean sheets, I just don't think we've got the defence there to keep that many clean sheets. I think it's going to be a tough season, which brings me on to the sort of final point, where do you expect to finish this season? We were pushing for playoffs at one point last season. We fell away in the last sort of 5-6 games and ended up, way below. I'm looking at 15th. I don't think we'll be pulled into relegation battle. I don't think we've been pushing for playoffs. I think it's going to be a very mediocre rebuild season under John Dahl Thomason. So, I reckon it'll be about 15th. I'd love them to prove me wrong. I'd love to see some signings coming in the next 2 weeks, but I'm a Blackburn fan. I know what to expect. So there you go. Cheers.
Okay, thank you very much, Darren, for your insight on Blackburn. That's really great. I think they're a team that we are very much going to be avoiding to start with this season unless they can bring in some new signings, but it's still worth talking about a couple of things. So first of all, Ben Brereton Diaz, 10 million, a bit much, right?
Yeah, probably, because we don't know if he's going to stay or not. And if with the transfer window ending on 1st September, you can't really have any much to say about him. And there are certain interests on him, and probably, as Darren mentioned also in the video, that they are linked with some strikers and some midfielders, I think from Sweden. Last time I checked, I think 2 weeks back, they were linked to some attacking midfield players. So I don't know about So let's hope that they get those deals done. But if Bertrand Diaz stays beyond the transfer window, then I think surely we can expect him to score goals. And 10 million can be. It's such a price. It's 10 million is such a price with so much form he was in last season, single-handedly winning games. It's really hard to look away from him. But this season, with the pricing of the forwards, we can certainly look past him until and especially till the transfer window ends or closes. So that's what I think. And I don't know why Darren suggests Kaminsky every year, but possibly if you are looking for a keeper that is going to run through whole the season or whole the season, I think Kaminsky will be but 5.5.
Too much.
There are a lot of better,
much.
there are a lot of better keepers in 4.5 and 5 million range.
Yeah.
But as he is our Blackburn correspondent, so he mentioned it quite heavily about him. And apart from that, I think let's all hope that Bradley Dack stays fit. But
Yeah.
judging from the prices as well, there are much better options.
Yeah, we know what Bradley Dack can do, and if he does find himself fit for a long period of time, he could be a good option. I think Brereton Diaz, I guess my take on him is he's definitely a £10 million player in terms of how good he is as a striker. It's just the concern is, you know, who else is in the team and the fact that they are just significantly weaker. They've lost Rothwell to Bournemouth, I think it was. They've lost Kadra. They're looking a bit light on numbers in midfield, and it's just a case of whether he'll have the chances created for him to score. And yeah, for me, the defence is probably a no-go for now, unless one of the options like Eden or Rankin Costello that you mentioned become an option at 4.5. I just think they're not gonna make enough clean sheets. So I think for me it's Brereton Diaz if they start scoring enough goals, and maybe Bradley Dack, but that would be it for me. David, do you have any other thoughts to add to that?
Yeah, I'm pretty much agreeing with you guys, but one player we haven't mentioned is Buckley. I think he was a very good pick for us in the last season.
Was he
And
4.5 last season?
He was probably like 4.5, 5 million last season. He has only gone up like 1 million, which isn't the worst. So he's like in the range with all the other 6 million mids that are like you can play them, but you can also bench them, I think. So if he like gets a similar kind of run for that price, I think it can be a good option. But yeah, he's obviously a bit more expensive, but like not that much for what he did last season.
Yeah, and then there's Tyrese Dolan at 6 as well, who again is at times shown promise as a player. It's just consistency. None of these midfielders like Buckley, Dolan have shown any kind of consistency, and I think they've been talked about in previous moments, like in previous seasons, as being options, and it's never really come to fruition. So, but yeah, you never know. One of them could emerge at that price. Be interesting to see.
I think we also haven't talked about Pickering. I think Darren also said that he can be a definite option. He can be the best player in Blackburn, in a Blackburn shirt this season. So we kind of have to, and he's at a nice price also. I think 5.5. Yeah, 5.5. And with Toffolo going, there is a space in our teams. So we might have to take a look at him, especially if the fixtures turn. And if they start with the form like last season. So yeah, as of now, it's an avoid. But I think Pickering and Brereton Diaz, if they stays after the transfer window closes, then certainly these two can be looked at.
Yeah, I think you got to see evidence of clean sheets for Pickering at 5.5. So for me, I don't think I would go there, particularly when there's probably much better defenders for just $500,000 more. But yeah, he's a really good player and the pick of the bunch certainly in defence.
Yeah.
Right.
And also their fixtures aren't like the best to start with, so we have some time to like assess them before we pick them for our teams.
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't read out the fixtures before. QPR at home, Swansea away, West Brom at home, Reading away, Sheffield United away. A real mixed bag there.
Yeah, that's a tough one, I think, because a lot of good teams and they have strengthened. Bar Blackburn, they haven't strengthened at all.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a tough run of games.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Well, I think we pretty much covered Blackburn then. Not much else to say on that. So, who is our next team, Abhishek?
Yeah, our next team is Blackpool. I think last season they got promoted and they were pretty much a decent side to stay in the championship in the first time of asking. So, but they have since then they have gone up wholesale of changes, which our Blackpool correspondent FPL Tangerine will talk about more in detail. So let's hear his video first, then we will talk about more of Blackpool.
Hi there, Gaffr managers. I'm FPL Tangerine. You can call me Tange for short. And I'm here at the invitation of the guys on Gaffr podcast to tell you a little bit about Blackpool. I'm recording this on the 12th of July. I say that because as of yet, we've had very little activity in the transfer window. But by the time that you watch this, hopefully we will have done. But this is, as far as I know, fairly accurate for time of recording. So the guys at the podcast asked me to tell you a little bit about, firstly, the transfer window, ins and outs, and what impact that might have. So the bad news is that we've had no one in as of yet. That's right. I think we're one of only two clubs in the Championship at the time of writing that have had no transfers in. So not a great start. I suppose the one kind of change we have had over the summer is, of course, the appointment of Michael Appleton. So it's a fairly lacklustre appointment that a lot of Blackpool fans are fairly frustrated by. Obviously, we had some time with him a few years back, not very long, but fair to say that the history between the club and him hasn't exactly been brilliant. And so the departure of Neil Critchley kind of left some fairly big boots to fill, and I think the fan base don't really kind of believe that he's the right man for the job, but we hope to be proven wrong. So in terms of kind of transfer activity that I think we'd like to see, we know that we need to strengthen in midfield. Back in the January transfer window, I think there were a couple of targets that we were aimed for and that we weren't able to secure. So we're still a little bit light in that area. However, I believe that Appleton's priority, and probably rightly so, is another centre-back to sit alongside Equiteta. So I think Rich Keogh is obviously doing a job for us at the moment, but he's getting he's getting older, and so I think we need to be looking ahead and getting another partnership at the back. So understandably, I think that's where his first signing is likely to come. The fullback positions are also a little thin at the moment. I think particularly right back. We had Sterling returned to his parent club, Chelsea, after his season-long loan last season. But I think coming into the new season, Jordan Gabriel, I think, has picked up an injury and so isn't likely to start the season. So that leaves us pretty weak at right back at the moment. Callum Connolly, I think, has played there at times, but so far in the pre-season games, at the time of recording, that's only been 2 games against Southport and against Leeds. He's favoured Connolly sort of in the holding midfield role, and we've had kind of like some of the youngsters trialled at right back. So I think that we will hope to bring in a new right back. And then even at left back, I think we could probably do a little bit of strengthening, but that's probably a little bit further down the priority list. In terms of kind of who's gone out, then Ethan Robson has gone out to MK Dons, where he went out on loan there, but then was recalled because of our midfield shortages, which I believe there was a little bit of he was a bit grieved by that, so that deal's been made permanent now, so he's gone. And then other than that, it's just been a couple of loanees out. So Oliver Casey's gone to Forest Green, and Reece James has gone to Sheffield Wednesday to join back up with his former manager. So it certainly leaves a couple of available spaces in our squad. So we just hope that we can do the business in the next few weeks. So but I think the big question is whether any of our first team are transferred between now and the start of the season. So the one that everyone's expecting is Josh Bowler. So there was a lot of interest from him last season. But there's also been talks of the likes of Gabriel, who I mentioned, and Keshi Anderson leaving. I think that was to Huddersfield. So obviously a lot of speculation at this time of year, but so yet to be seen whether any of those are likely to happen. But I think for us, the worst case scenario is that those moves do happen, but they happen late in the window, and then it risks us not being able to replace them, and that would leave us, sort of weaker than we were last season. We have one of the smallest, if not the smallest, budget in the league, so attracting talent is always going to be tough for a club like Blackpool. I hope we can just get our business done sort of sooner rather than later, please, Appleton. So in terms of Gaffr assets then, so I think when I first looked at the pricing, generally I felt like the Blackpool pricing was pretty fair. I think my main reaction, and I think I kind of shared this with some of the Gaffr community, was that I thought the Gary Medine came a little bit expensive at 6 million, and similarly that Jake Beasley was maybe a bit of a bargain at 5. But that's really because we didn't really have a standout striker last season. So we often played with 2 up front, but there's quite a lot of rotation there with Medine, Yates, Lavery. And then Beasley came in, and I think that he showed some positive signs in the few appearances he did make. Pretty sure it's kind of anyone's guess really who's going to be Appleton's first choice up front. So in that respect, I think that I was expecting them all to be kind of like fairly evenly priced. So I can't see any Gaffr managers going for Medina at 6 million. I think the main focus for Gaffr is going to be our keepers. So for managers looking at a 4.5 keeper, you're basically choosing between the promoted teams, Etheridge at Birmingham, Lumley at Reading, or one of the Blackpool guys. But the big question, of course, is who's Blackpool's first choice keeper? And I'm sure that if you're listening to this, that's the answer that you're looking for me to answer. I'm sorry to say that I don't have a definitive answer for you. So Daniel Grimshaw had a great season last season, I think. After he was called upon, obviously following Maxwell's injury. He has just recently signed a new contract, which I know some Pool fans have kind of taken to mean that he's our number 1. I'm not so sure about that. I'd like to believe it. I know I'd like to see him first choice, but Chris Maxwell, as far as I'm aware, is still our club captain. So I think that seniority reigns, and that he'll probably still be our starter because, of course, Grimshaw's got the future ahead of him. So there's not much to draw between them, but personally I think that Maxwell might just have it, but it's so hard to say. The 2 pre-season games that we've played so far, I mentioned Southport and Leeds, I think in both those games Maxwell started the first half and Grimshaw played the second half. So they've had the same game time so far. Nothing really to read into that at the moment. Obviously, as we progress through pre-season, maybe that'll become a bit clearer, but we just don't know. So, one thing I've considered myself is to start with both of them. Then you can either stick with them both for kind of like king and air strategy, as FPL managers will be familiar with. No reason why it shouldn't also work in Gaffr. But of course, the main issue with that is that so they're both priced at 4.5, so that'll be a kind of total of 9 million spent on your keepers. And if you do that strategy, you could do that strategy for cheaper. So I think with Reading, was the example I kind of looked into. So you could do that at 8.5. All the promoted teams as well, I think most of them come in with their kind of first choice keeper at 4.5, and then their backups at 4 million. So King and Air, if you just really wanted to save the pennies, then they're probably slightly better options than Blackpool. Whether they're as good and will keep as many clean sheets, I don't know, but I can't exactly back our defence at the moment, so who knows. Also, if we were looking at the kind of 9 million across your keepers, then you could also look at QPR. So QPR, I think, have got Dieng at 5 million, and then both Archer and Mahoney are at 4. So I'm not sure which of those two will, the preferred backup. But you could argue that QPR are going to be keeping more clean sheets than Blackpool. So for the same money, you might want to look there instead. Or, the other option, of course, is that, you start with 2, and as it becomes clearer, who the first choice is, you can transfer one of them out, for perhaps another kind of club that rotates with Blackpool. Obviously, that's booking in a transfer and booking in a goalkeeper transfer, which, you might not want to do. But I did have a look into this, and it looked like Wigan sort of rotate fairly well with Blackpool, particularly from about game week 5 onwards. But you might want to do your own research on that rotation. I don't think it'll look too far ahead. But, it's an option. So start with the 2 of them, and then game week 3, 4, 5, whenever you've got a kind of a free transfer that you're happy to use up, sort of like switching whoever the second choice is out for like the weekend keeper, and then that might give you quite kind of like a cheap rotation that'll do you for certainly through to the next phase. But putting the goalkeepers aside, the other option that I'm certainly considering is, of course, Big Marv Ekpiteta. So he's had a price rise since last season, so he's up to 5. But I still think he offers value at that price. He's probably our most nailed player. And he found the opposition net 5 times last season, which for a centre back I don't think is too bad. So 5 million, I think you can do a lot worse than looking at Ekpiteta. Outside of the keepers and Ekpiteta, I'm not really looking anywhere else. Everybody's sort of priced sort of as you'd expect, but I just think that at that price point there's better options elsewhere. So in terms of where I think we might finish this season, so we had a pretty good campaign last season, first season back up at the Championship, but as I previously said, we have one of, if not the smallest budget in the league, which means we rely on good coaching to stay competitive. And we had that with Critchley, which is why we were devastated to lose him. And I think the manner in which he went and kind of how quick it happened, it's definitely left a bitter taste in the mouth of Pool fans. But we move on. So it remains to be seen what Appleton can bring. But it is fair to say that the reaction amongst the fan base has been fairly lukewarm about his appointment. So if we have a good start, it'll quickly get fans on board, and that'd be great. But in my opinion, if we fail to pick up any points, particularly looking at our first three games, if we don't get points from those, then I think Pool fans are going to very quickly turn on him. Literally from the third game, I think is at home to Swansea. I think that by that game, if we haven't got anything on the board, then we could be calling for his head at that point. So hopefully he can surprise us, but either by completing some of the exciting transfers that he keeps teasing us with, or just getting the existing squad off to a good start, find some nice early form. So in terms of expectations for the season, with no transfers in, it's hard to be optimistic. We finished 16th last season. I think we're going to be in a relegation battle, to be perfectly honest. Even the optimist in me thinks that we'll finish lower than last season. I don't know, maybe between about 18th and 20th. But, if we struggle to secure any of our targets and then have the likes of Bowler, swiped from us, particularly late in the window when we're not able to replace them, I really think that we're at risk of going down. So to summarise, no major ins or outs as of yet. So definitely have some gaps to fill in our squad, particularly around central midfield, central defence, and the fullbacks. In terms of Gaffr assets, I think it's one or both of the goalkeepers and Ekpiteta. I'm not sure where I'm going to go yet. I'm pretty sure I'll have Ekpiteta in my game week 1 squad. Maybe the keepers. I think I'm going to have to keep an eye on the rest of pre-season and see who else kind of is showing promise. And expectations for the season pretty low. Survival will be a success this season, I think, particularly if we lose some of our better players and aren't able to replace them in time. So thanks for watching. Wish you all the best with your Gaffr season, and ask that you wish us luck in return, because I think we're going to need it. Right. Thanks very much. Take care.
All right. So I don't feel like we've got loads to talk about for Blackpool, but thanks a lot, FPL Tangerine, for for your thoughts there. That's very comprehensive and hopefully very, very useful for most of us. I mean, I think the first thing to talk about is the keepers, which is obviously, it's a bit of a blow. I didn't like what you said there, because for me, of the 4.5 keepers, like Blackpool were the standout. Based off of their defensive record last season. I know the issue with Neil Critchley leaving does throw a bit more doubt into whether Blackpool will be as solid this season, but I would have been very likely to have had whichever keeper you would have said was first choice in my team. And of course, I feel reluctant to go with both Maxwell and Grimshaw, with them both being 4.5 as you talked about. So for me, that's a shame, because now I'm not sure. I'm honestly not sure what I'm going to do with my keepers. My current draft has 0 in the bank. And I would rather have a 4.5 than go up to 5, but I'm starting to think there's nothing good enough in that 4.5 bracket. So that was unfortunate. But yeah, I guess there are a couple of other things to talk about. David, there have been a couple of new signings since the video, right? Although we don't know much about them, do we?
Yeah, there have been 2 signings. One of them is Luis Florini. Did we get which position he was playing for?
A midfielder from
the
Man City under 23s, but
right. And also Barili Lubala, who is a striker. Both of them haven't been added to the game yet, but I think they will in the next couple of days probably. Yeah, and as you said, we don't know much about them, but I guess if you want to know, our correspondent probably has some inside news about them as well. So yeah, I think he can clue us in on that when that is time for that. We can also move on to one of my players that I've had last season. He is a bit more expensive now, and as you can see on the picture, he is 5 million. Marvin Ekpieta. But I still think that's a good price for a goal-scoring defender. That you don't get that often. Yeah, I think.
David, you missed out a letter on the thing. I've just realised. It's Marvin Ekpieta.
No way.
But I quite liked Marvin Ekpieta. That does sound.
It sounded better, so maybe that's like why. Yeah. That's like the editor's nightmare, like one little thing that you don't see.
It's okay. It's fine. Keep going.
Yeah, alright. We can fix that. Yeah. What else is there to say? He's the same prices like Ken Wilson. We don't know much about, but he's in at least last season solid team for defense, and yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah, I think he could be a decent option if Blackpool look fairly solid. Before I come to you, Abhishek, just a quick word on the fixtures. Reading at home, good, and Stoke away, not a bad start, and then Swansea at home, QPR away, Burnley away. If we're thinking defensive assets, those aren't great fixtures for it. So yeah, again, a mixed bag with Blackpool as well, I would say. The only other thing to touch on, Abhishek, is the strikers.
Yeah, I think it's better to stay away from them, although they are very cheap in the game. But Appleton's sides doesn't seem to score a lot of goals. I think probably the main focus will be from the midfield. Probably Yates becoming an option if there is a favorable run of fixtures for 5 to 6 games. Then if Yates hits the form, then I think Yates and Medine, whoever plays up top, will be an option. But the jury is still out for the strikers. So that the only thing is that they're cheap. If you want an enabler in your forwards or in your squad to make an enabler for the squad, then. But I guess pretty much everyone playing Gaffr this season, I think all 3 forward spots are pretty much locked up, and we have 8 to 9 options. We talked about in the last pod. We have like 8 to 9 options. So I think Blackpool forwards, if there is an urgent need, until and unless there is an urgent need, we are not going to touch them. Hell, we are not going to look at them, although they are very good priced, but we are not going to look at them. And I think, as David mentioned, it's either Ekpieta or no one from Blackpool. And with and with the correspondent saying that the correspondent saying that they whoever starts at number 1, he doesn't know. So we can't seem to know about Maxwell, and I think I have seen loads of drafts having Maxwell. So it's a bitter pill to swallow for them owners.
Annoying. It's an annoying one.
Yeah.
That pretty much covers it for Blackpool. So next up, we've got a team that we're probably going to have a lot more to talk about than these first two. That is one of the relegated teams, that is Norwich, and we have got FPL Jess, who is going to give us the rundown on Gaffr assets for Norwich.
Hi there, this is FPL Jess here. I'm a Norwich City fan and Norwich City's Her Game 2 ambassador. I'm just going to take you through the assets for Gaffr this season. Now, say from Norwich side, obviously, transfer window wise, not a lot has changed for us. We've signed Hayden on loan, which shouldn't really do a lot to fantasy teams, to be honest. And as is the Norwich way, we've signed a player who isn't going to start the season. So basically, Hayden won't make it for the start. Avoid him at all costs. Avoid him anyway because he's a holding midfielder. As for the rest of the team, having looked over the assets and all those kinds of things, we basically are looking at the usual kind of Norwich lineup. Teemu Pukki, always take Teemu Pukki, even if he is 11.5 mil. Brilliant striker. Is just guaranteed goals basically, as he always is in the Championship. The other ones I would look at, probably if we keep hold of Max Aarons, definitely have a bit of a look at him at 6.5 mil. Obviously he's good. I think possibly Dimi Yanulis at 6 is a bit better, just in terms of the pricing. Obviously you've got the left-sided fullback as opposed to the right side, and Yanulis does seem to have at least a bit more of an attacking edge from what I've seen of him. Now, say into the midfield, Rashica I think is probably a touch overpriced for where he is. There's no doubt he definitely could go ahead into the Championship and absolutely blitz it. But for Norwich, to say, he seems to be a little bit of an unknown quantity at the moment, just because we didn't see a massive amount from him in the Premier League. Didn't see those link-ups like we did with Buendia to Teemu Pukki. So I'm a little bit nervous on him, to be honest. A little bit more confident on Daniel Sinani at 7 mil. Now, obviously he's done it at this level. Dean Smith has said that he likes the player, that he's happy with what he's seen from him so far. He did look good in the friendly I watched the other night against Kings Lynn, so always a positive, even if it is against the National League North side. But as I say, generally, Sinani, I think at 7 mil is probably one of our better options in the midfield. I wouldn't go for Kieran Dowell, to be honest, and probably none of the others like Onel Hernandez or anyone like that at all. I would probably also say that Hanley and Gibson. Hanley, of the two, is the one that's most likely to play. At 6 mil, if you do want a regular starter, he's the one that I would go for. If you're looking to have 6 mil and a bit of a risk as a centre half, Ben Gibson is probably the way you'd go. But I would ultimately look to stay away from Ben Gibson, especially again because we've got Andrew Omobamidele coming back in. There's definitely a chance that he gets into the first team when he's back and fully fit. Keepers wise, you can't really split the two. Tim Krul and Angus Gunn. Really, as I say, we've seen them both kind of rotating in and out. We've not really been able to figure out who's the number one so far. So I probably would stay away from our keepers. And if I had to pick 3 Norwich assets, I would go probably Yanulis, Sinani and Pukki. Just say Teemu Pukki, even at that premium price, guarantees goals, like I said earlier. Now, in terms of where we would be looking at sort of finish wise at the season, I'm a little bit more nervous for this one. And say obviously there's the whole thing. We are the yo-yo club. We know we're the yo-yo club, but I'm really a lot more nervous about this season than maybe the 2 seasons ago when we we're back in. We had the team, kept a good team together, and we obviously stormed it like we did last time, or like we did that time there. So new manager, I'm a bit more worried about. Again, we haven't really been able to find a definite style of play for him. We've really sort of been a bit disjointed, and obviously with the new signings, that's been tough for us all to adapt. It doesn't seem like we've really shown anything. We haven't had anywhere near that that potential that we did have under Daniel Farke. So I would probably say we'd be looking to get promoted, top 6. Anything lower than top 6 would be saying a failure, I think. But I really can't see us sort of storming it like we did last time, even after having kept most of that squad together there. Okay, that's all I've got to say on that one, and good luck for your seasons in Gaffr.
Great, thank you very much for that, Jess. So Norwich are a very interesting one, I think. They're tricky because we know Norwich are obviously such a brilliant side. In the Championship, they're proven, and they're obviously a yo-yo team. So Pukki, we'll start with Pukki. We're going to have him in our teams, so we don't really need to talk about that any more.
Let's move on.
If you don't have Pukki, you're taking a massive gamble. You're probably going to be, 1k after like 5 weeks, or at least you're very likely to be. So, bit risky.
After game week 1, 1k after game week 1.
Well, most
he's
people
gonna
will be
score
that anyway.
goals.
Yeah. So if you're going to go without Pukki, you're very, very brave. Just a quick word on the fixtures also. We're probably going to be looking at a triple up because considering some of the other kind of big teams in the division have quite tough starts. Norwich have got Cardiff away, Wigan at home, Hull away, Huddersfield at home, Millwall at home. I think that's a really good start for them. And so we're going to be basically trying to find the best triple up here. So it's going to be Pukki and 2 others. Who the others are, a bit more up for debate. So I think the first interesting thing was midfield. So Rashika has been in a lot of drafts. But Jess was really not that sold on Rashika and preferred Sinani, and Sinani is not someone I'd considered, but is a very interesting one. He was the best option for Huddersfield last season in terms of the midfield. He did quite well. I don't think many people owned him at any times of the season, but I think he was at least a pretty decent asset. That is an interesting one. What are your thoughts on that? Because Rashika's in so many teams and he's in my current draft.
Yes, it's quite interesting that the battle between Rashika and Sinani. I didn't think about Sinani at all because I was always thinking about Rashika to own, and possibly Onel Hernandez is also back, I think, and they have signed a new attacking midfielder from Brazil. I think his name is Sara. I think he has been added to the game in 8 million midfielder. So I was not looking about owning them. I was just looking about owning Rashika, but with Sinani being at 7 million, that opens up quite, I think, 2.5 million from in our budget.
Significant. It's a significant saving.
Yeah, to invest in certain areas, especially in defense and forwards, because if you are owning all 8.5 and above forwards, you need the money to spend in your back line also. So, and after Sinani having quite a good season with Huddersfield last season in the Championship, so yeah, I'm quite looking forward to owning Sinani if he nails the place, if he nails a spot in that, because Rashika, I think, will be their primary set piece takers, and with Sinani took them at Huddersfield. So if he can share with Rashika, then that's quite an interesting thing, because Rashika at 9.5 is quite a difference. If Rashika was 8.5, then that difference would have been manageable. But Sinani being 7 million and him being 9.5, that's quite a bit. And with a new Brazilian midfielder coming at 8, I think Dean Smith day before yesterday said that he will be he's an attacking midfielder. So probably he will play behind Pukki. So I'm really looking at, and so yeah, if Sinani starts and continuously starts, then he is the one I'm looking forward. as my triple up instead of Rashika.
Yeah, and also one other option we haven't talked about yet is Cantwell, because we had the prize reveals, if you remember, listeners. And we were so excited that he wasn't taken because it was like a long list of players that we had couldn't put up, but Campbell was like, wow, how is he still available? But so he came at 7.5, and we was like, that's mad cheap for a starter at Norwich.
The question is, does he start though?
Yeah, that's the question.
Hard to tell. I'm not actually sure what the answer to that is.
No, I think we were more sure at the start of after the game dropped, but now they have so many options. So I'm not sure. He was like the nailed player in my draft for some time, but like not anymore. Now I'm more looking at Senani because he's cheaper, and 0.5 can go a long way, especially with the defenders. We need to have the upgrade on 6 and 6.5. So it's a big difference.
One of the midfielders is going to become a cracking option. It's just who, because we know Norwich score a lot of goals in the Championship. It's just really hard to pin that down.
And also I think that's with Sarah signing for Norwich, that's quite a killer blow for Cantwell's chances to start. I think before that we kind of have an idea about Pookie starting up top, Cantwell in behind at the 10, and Rashika and Sinani or Hernandez Sinani or Hernandez, whoever in the flanks. But now with Sarah, especially with Dean Smith mentioning he's an attacking midfielder, I am not sure about Cantwell, and it's a shame really, because last time Norwich was at the Championship, him, Buendia and Pookie terrorized the opposition every week. So it's a shame, but let's hope Dean Smith. Also, one thing to note, that Dean Smith likes Cantwell much more. I don't get the signing, probably for depth, but let's see what Dean Smith starts.
I don't know. Does he like Cantwell? Because he sent him out to Bournemouth on loan, didn't he? Or did he buy him back? Wait, was there something weird going on there? Was it just a loan, right?
It was a loan, yeah.
I don't know why I thought it might have been something. No, it's also that. I think I'm just having a brain glitch.
Possibly.
I think Dean Smith was appointed later before Cantwell moved out on loan.
Oh, really?
Maybe. I think because Dean Smith publicly has said he likes Cantwell.
You sure?
So if you like a player, why will you send him on loan? But who knows?
Yeah, not sure. Yeah. So there is one other issue to talk about, which is defensively. So David, what are your thoughts on the defence? Because obviously Jess was talking about kind of between, it was Giannoulis, have I said that correctly? Who was kind of the most favoured option, when I think most of us probably have Aarons in our drafts. What are your thoughts on that, David?
I think the player I want firstly is Aarons, but we don't know if he's staying or not. So if we don't have him, I'm not so sure I want one, because Hanley and Gibson are not picks for me. They're just centre backs that don't offer much, at least in the Premier League. I'm not sure if that translates difference in here, but other than that, Ubamidele, maybe he's a bit cheaper. But Giannoulis, if he's not nailed, I'm not sure he's an option for me either. So for me, it's just Aarons.
He should be fairly nailed, Giannoulis.
Yeah, okay.
I think.
Yeah, if he is, he's a good option. If not, he's maybe could be an burner defender instead. But
I think it's the fixtures that's the issue, because the fixtures are so good. I think we almost feel more inclined to start with a Norwich defender rather than like a Burnley defender or a Sheffield United defender, because they have tough fixtures. Watford don't have particularly good fixtures, so it's like Norwich are the only big team that have such good fixtures. And I was on Aarons, but I was kind of convinced to go for Giannoulis actually, for the 0.5 saving. An interesting team that I think it's actually going to make quite a big difference to our Gaffr seasons, picking the right option at the right time before everyone jumps on. I feel like that's one of those points where there's going to be 3 template Norwich assets at some point in this season, and there's an opportunity to steal a march by picking the right one before they become that template option. But it's hard. It feels like guesswork to me. So we'll see. Any other thoughts on Norwich before we move on?
Yeah, I think it's better to stay away from the goalkeepers. They are very pricey.
Yeah. Agreed.
Should we move on to the next team?
Let's do that, yeah.
Yeah. Our next team is Preston, and for that we have our correspondent, who is Declan Murphy, Deck_Murphy on Twitter. So let's hear what he has to say about Preston.
Hello, my name is Declan, or @DeckMurphy on Twitter if you're bothered. I'm here today to cover Preston for next season on Gaffr, so I've got some notes written down if you wonder why I keep looking up. So we have strengthened in goalkeeper. We have Woodman, which is a pretty decent keeper. We have new Cam in Woodburn, which is alright, you know. It depends if he stays fit. I mean, looked at in pre-season, and we're getting a new striker, which is Cam Robinson, on loan or permanent, not sure yet, but he could be a very good asset for Preston if he gets minutes. And we have Brady at wing back. If he gets the minutes, I'm saying he's one of our best assets. The problem is, his fitness. He's played about 70 games in about 6 or 7 years, I read online, so I wouldn't be going there. Our best assets next season are Woodman at 5.5 million. I think top level championship keeper. He makes a lot of saves, a lot of clean sheets. You know, a lot of potential there. Not going to get rotated as the backup keeper. Cornell's not the greatest, so I think we should be alright there. Our other strengths are Daniel Johnson in midfield, coming at 7 million. I think he'll be a main part of the team. Problem is he's a bit inconsistent, so I'd be a bit more lenient to go into other 7 mils, like what's your man at Swansea. I wouldn't be touching Daniel Johnson, but if I had to pick one, that'd be another one. Brady at 5 mil. If he stays fit and gets given the minutes, he'll be one of the highest scoring defenders in the championship, because the crosses he'll make and the runs he'll make and the shots, he'll be up there with the highest. And also, who's the final one I've written down? Yeah, that's the final one. I've put down one of the 4.5 million defenders for Preston. I have a Story, Diaby or Lindsay, but it depends which one plays. Because as of now, one of them has to start. So it's like, if you need a cheap defender, that's probably one of the go-tos in my opinion. But I'm obviously a bit more biased, so that doesn't really help. Where we've lost is not really lost in positions. It's more just loan players like Van der Berg, who played right centre back in the back three. He's a big miss, and Archer up front, not a big miss, but Archer's been replaced with Robinson, so it's not too bad. And where do I think we're going to finish next year? I think an ambitious anywhere from 10th to 5th, but I preferably want playoffs. But it depends on the more signs we make. And yeah, that's all I've got to say about Preston really. So hope you enjoyed.
So Preston, they've got really good fixtures to start off with, and for that reason we may be looking at including one in our team potentially. They've got Wigan away, Hull at home, Luton away, Rotherham at home, Watford at home, so particularly those first 4 looking quite good. So the standouts for me were Callum Robinson and Robbie Brady. First of all, Robbie Brady. When you were talking about Brady, I googled and I was like, didn't realise it was Robbie Brady at first, and then when I was googling I was like, oh, it was Robbie Brady. I didn't realise he'd gone to Preston. So yeah, I mean, he's got Premier League experience, Championship experience,
International experience.
I mean, I'm looking for potentially having a Preston defender just for a few game weeks. I'm interested. Are either of you interested?
Yes, certainly when he spoke about Brady, it really opened my eyes that what? Brady is still there. I thought he was injured.
He's only 30 years old as well. I thought he was older than that. He's only 30.
Yeah, I think he mentioned that if Brady, we all have our fingers crossed, because if Brady stays fit, then he becomes a damn good option at 5 million. Certainly with those fixtures. So if he's fit and a clean health, he has a clean health through the pre-seasons, then I think Brady becomes an option alongside Woodman, especially in these 4. first first five fixtures, because I also like Woodman, because he is like a cult hero a few seasons back when he was at Bournemouth. He was racking up save points after save points, half clean sheets after clean and full clean sheets. So if he can replicate that form at Preston, then he certainly seems like a good business for them. And apart from that, I don't think I am looking forward to owning anyone. Am I missing something?
I mean, there's Reece at 7.5, who's potentially interesting. I mean, 7.5 is a bit much for me, for someone who, to be fair, people owned at times last season, but I don't fancy it. But saying that, the interesting thing with Brady is I can just envisage with his, pretty good crossing ability, like quite a few occasions of goal, Reece, assist Brady from like a cross into the box that he's headed in, because he's got a pretty good delivery on him. So. Yeah, I mean, I think it's an interesting one, and just maybe Preston will have more options than in previous seasons. And as of now, Callum Robinson is very heavily linked to Preston. Looks like he's going back. How much is he? David, would you be interested in Callum Robinson if he went to Preston, where he's more likely to be a bit more of a talisman and more of an important figure?
The West Brom guy?
The West Brom guy?
Yeah.
Ooh, 8.5. Maybe. It's like, for Preston, I would have liked 8 or 7.5, but if he's going to be a talisman, that's pretty good, actually.
He's been priced. He's been priced based off of being a West Brom player, hasn't he? Which means if he was at Preston at the start, when the game launched, he'd probably be $1 million or so cheaper, right? So it's a tricky one. I can't say I'm interested in him yet, but. He makes their attack a lot better, and it could make Reece a better option.
It could be like a bit more expensive Swift from last season, maybe.
Yeah.
That's good.
I think we all had our frustrations with Robinson because he wasn't being able to nail down a starting spot at West Brom, which he can at Preston. And if Brady stays fit, he will be bombing on those crosses from the left-hand side. And Callum Robinson, I think, is moderately good at air. So, as you said, Brady assist, Reece goal, Brady assist, Robinson goal. Their attack looks much more better if Robinson signs. I think I forgot about Daniel Johnson as well. He is on the set pieces and penalties also. So, with that, quartet attacking an opponent's goal, that's quite a good attacking option for Preston. So I kind of like Preston much more as after Callum Robinson, when Callum Robinson signs. Before that, it doesn't interest me that much apart from Brady and Woodburn. But if Robinson signs, then certainly Reece becomes also a good option, because Robinson will be the target man and Reece will be the floater behind him, so he will pop up with the goals.
Wouldn't it be the other way around? I would have thought Reece would have been the target man and Robinson would be more of the floater behind.
I think Robinson will be the target man, because
I don't think I agree with that, to be honest.
Still, we have differing opinions in this one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not uncommon, is it?
Yeah.
Because to me, Reece is a big, strong player, big, strong striker, who to me suits the role of target man more, whereas Callum Robinson has a bit more of a creative ability to him, as someone who might, like for West Brom, he was playing off the left, a bit like the Zinkernagel, different player to Zinkernagel, but not too dissimilar in that he was kind of floating in off the left.
Be careful what you're saying, man.
Like he's not a winger, but he's more like an inside forward, which Zinkernagel wasn't actually, to be fair. But yeah, I see him as an inside forward rather than like an out and out striker like Reece. So that's how I read things with him.
Zink has gone to Greece. Why we are talking about him now?
I'm happy he still gets the feature in the pod sometimes. He made an impact on our lives.
Yeah, exactly.
At least mine.
And mine.
Yeah.
I watched
and Abhishek for different reasons, like mostly irritating. But yeah.
He whenever I owned him, he didn't get me any points.
You just weren't patient enough, man.
Abhishek, did you play ESN when he was in the Norwegian league?
No, I think I was a season later
Okay.
when he moved to England.
So
Everything
not
made
anything
sense.
good for you.
I missed.
Anyway,
But-
we digress.
Yeah.
It strikes me that Preston could be a team that sneak under the radar just because of our preconceived ideas of them. But I did think 4th to 6th was a bit over optimistic.
Yeah, I'm way more excited now than I was before recording his pod. So maybe I'll have a Preston player in my team soon.
Look, judging from whatever business they have done, if Callum Robinson signs with them, that team looks quite a good team. Because Woodburn, they solved the goalkeeping issue that they had. Woodburn is a better keeper than they had last season. If Brady stays fit, the left hand side is good. I think probably they need to work on the right hand side, right hand side, because the central defensive partnership I think is good. So in the right hand side, if they get a good proper right back, then I think it's fine. In midfield, they have Daniel Johnson. Probably Robinson will play as a winger. I think they have Brown at 5.5, which is a good option. Especially he has been in form in the preseason. I think all the Gaffr group chats I'm in, they have been picking up Brown quite a bit. I think they have Woodburn also.
Whiteman's the other one. I think he's on some set pieces.
Yeah, so that's a quite decent midfield they have, and I think Reese up top. That's quite a good-looking team, especially first 11. But I don't know about any of the subs. Possibly he talked about quite a few cheap defenders. I think the likes of Lindsay, Story, and Diaby.
Just depends who starts, doesn't it? We don't really know.
Yeah, I think he said that out of the 3, one has to start due to some injury issues they have in their defensive ranks. So
yeah,
could be a cheap way to go.
A good transfer window, I think. They've not really lost any key players, and they've recruited quite well. They've flown under the radar, so it'll be interesting to see how they do. All right, let's move on to our next team. Last off, our 5th team, Abhishek.
Yeah, we are going to Stoke. Our fellow EFL Fantasy Gaffr podcast, EFL Fantasy Pod, Jamie. I think he has taken a sabbatical from the pod, but he's forever our Stoke correspondent. So he tells us about whatever business they have done this season, and if anything, whatever any latest injury issues they have in the squad. Because last season, I think who is that player that was constantly injured?
Powell.
Nick Powell. Yeah, Nick Powell. So we get to know about Nick Powell as well, if he's fit or not for this season. So yeah, let's go hear about what Jamie has to say about his beloved club Stoke.
So at this point Felix got tired of us rambling about Preston and left the recording studio. Can't blame him, can you?
Hi guys, Jamie here from the EFL Fantasy Podcast. Here's my preview on Stoke for the upcoming season. So firstly, I'll start with the departures and arrivals, just to show how that may affect our starting 11 for the upcoming season. So departing, we lost Joe Allen, Tom Ince, James Chester, Stephen Fletcher and Tommy Smith on free transfers. Their contracts run out, they left. Allen's obviously gone to Swansea, Ince at Reading, Chester's gone down to Derby in League One, Fletcher's gone up to Scotland, and Tommy Smith's without a club at the moment. We also lost Benik Phoebe to Millwall on a permanent transfer. He was there on loan last season, and Alfie Doherty has gone to Luton. So in terms of how that may affect us, Allen will be a miss in the midfield, especially in the midfield three. Ince, Chester, Fletcher, Doherty with fringe players anyway. Smith will be a miss at right back, considering we haven't actually got a right back at the moment, and Marian Vrancic has gone to Croatia on loan as well. So not massively going to affect us really in terms of our starting 11. The arrivals are Josh Lauren on a free transfer from Reading. He'll play in the midfield three. Aidan Flint's come in from Cardiff as a centre back. Liam McCarron from Leeds, young lad left back, probably not going to get games. Definitely back up. May get a few cup appearances, but Timon will definitely be our left back. Gavin Kilkenny's come in on loan from Bournemouth, central midfielder, and Harry Clark on loan from Arsenal. He is a centre back, but in 2 of our pre-season games he has played right wing back, so not ideal, but we haven't got another wing back at the moment. Sparrow, a young lad, he did play against Fleetwood, but I wouldn't say he's an option. In terms of predicting our starting 11, it's quite tough under Michael O'Neill, but I'll do my best. Basic should start in goal. He's 5.5 million, but I wouldn't be surprised if he makes a mistake and Bonham at 5 million comes in, so I'd avoid the goalkeepers. Defensively, Wilmot's played left of a back three, so he's likely to play centre back. Harry Souttar's injured, so he definitely won't start the season, so Aidan Flint will probably play in the middle of the three. And then the right centre back spot is up for grabs. Jagielka is probably the favourite to get it, but the young lad Connor Taylor, who was on loan at Bristol Rovers last year, he's impressed in pre-season, and I'd like to see him get a chance there at right centre back. He isn't on the game at time of recording, but he is likely to be in there at 4.5 by the time you watch this video. Right wing back at the moment, it's probably going to be Clark at 5 million. Until we sign somebody, which I think we will do, and Josh Timon will play left wing back. He is classified as a defender this year. He is at 5.5, so I think he could be a great option. Midfield 3, definitely Lewis Baker. He'll be the first choice, and then it will be 2 of 3. So Powell's out injured, so I imagine Jordan Thompson, Lauren, and Sam Clucas will fight for them 2 spots. I'd probably say Thompson probably will get one of them, probably as a left centre mid, with him being left footed, but Clucas could play there as well. Up front, at the moment we've only got 2 strikers, Jacob Brown and Tyrese Campbell. Demario Wright-Phillips, who's classified as a midfielder, has been playing up front in pre-season, but he's definitely not first choice. It's definitely going to be Brown and Campbell, but a striker will be coming in. O'Neill has said that, and I anticipate it may be Josh Madger coming back, considering the financial troubles at Bordeaux. So that's probably my starting 11 as it stands right now at recording. Best assets, keepers stay away from. Souttar's at 5.5, but he's going to miss a start, but he will become an option. I probably wouldn't go anywhere near the others unless Connor Taylor starts. 4.5 will be a bargain. But the best one is Josh Timon. He is nailed in my team. He was a midfielder last year on the game. He's 5.5 million. I do think he will be one of the best defenders in the game. I think he's getting under the radar at the moment, so definitely pick him. Midfield wise, Powell's injured. He's only 7.5 this year. He's had a 0.5 price deduction. He will be an option at some point throughout the season, just not now. Baker at 6.5 is interesting. Could be a 4th midfielder for you, maybe even a 5th. He is on set pieces and penalties. He did score a lot of points when he joined us in January for the last half of the season. The others, I wouldn't go anywhere near the central midfielders. And then strikers, Brown 7.5, Campbell's 0.5 cheaper at 7. Personally, wouldn't go for them. I think there's better options elsewhere in the league. But if Campbell can find the form that he found before he got injured 2 seasons ago, he could definitely be a really good asset at 7 million. He's a great finisher in the box. But considering we're playing a 5-3-2, there's a lot of running for him to do. He's not really sitting in the box. We're not creating them chances. So, yeah, I'd probably ignore that for now. And then finally, my prediction for the season. I've been to both pre-season games away. It's not promising. It's the same formation as last year. Not creating many chances. So I predict a mid-table finish. Anything from 10th to 16th maybe. I'd be very surprised if we finish higher than that or lower than that, in fact. It just depends who we bring in between now and game week 1, Millwall away. But yeah, that's my preview on Stoke. Good luck for all your season, and thanks to the guys on Gaffr Pods for having me. Doing a great job. Cheers, boys.
Thank you very much, Jamie, and it's good to hear you back on the pods after a bit of a break. And thank you for all you guys do as well on the EFL Fantasy Pod. It's great content that you guys put out. So, on to Stoke then. Fixtures are middling, I would say. Millwall away, Blackpool at home, Huddersfield away, Middlesbrough at home, Sunderland at home. So no kind of really, really tough fixtures. A few kind of middling fixtures and a couple of decent fixtures. What are the main points about Stoke, would you say then, David?
Yeah, I'd say they are a team that potentially have some options, but also a bit some uncertainties, especially with Powell, who is now a bit cheaper but still injury prone as ever.
Yeah.
But the player that excites me most, and as you can see in the graphic for those watching on YouTube, is Lewis Baker. He has gone up a bit, but he's only still 6.5 million, and I had him quite a lot in my team last season, and if he keeps being such an important team for Stoke, especially in the absence of Powell, I think he can be a great option. I think that's like the only player I would consider from the attack at the moment, because I'm not sure about the strikers who will play out of Brown and Campbell. But maybe Abhishek or you can go a bit into detail about defense and forwards, maybe.
Yeah, I think you're missing the trick by not picking Jacob Brown here, because although he got a price rise, I have to defend him because he has been scoring loads of points last season. I had to defend him. And
you had a good experience with him. I get it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to pick him, but I get it.
Plus, thanks to Jamie for pointing him towards me, because I haven't been focusing on Stoke players at all last season. But after hearing Jamie that little about Jacob Brown, I took a risk on him, but he has repaid me handsomely. And justifiably, after playing last season in forward position quite a lot, he has been listed as a forward this season.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm not interested in Brown. I think, if he was just a midfielder, then yeah, maybe, but reclassified as a forward, I just don't think Stoke score enough goals.
And so much more expensive, than last season.
When Adebayo is 7.5, I'm going Adebayo any day of the week, right?
Yeah. Of course.
Yeah, I mean, Powell could, if he can be fit, which is obviously a big if. I think 7.5 is a decent price for him, and he could be a good option. But I'm very interested in Baker. Probably not to start with, for various reasons. Partly to do with my boost strategy, which I want to keep fairly quiet because I want to beat everyone. I'm probably going to own Baker at some point. I mean, there's a point last season where I had a 50-50 between O'Hare and Baker, and I got it wrong. And I went for O'Hare, and then Baker scored like 3 goals in 3 games, and I was very annoyed. He's on penalties, right, and he can't offshoot from outside the box. He's a really good player. So yeah, I'm interested in Baker, and I think 6.5 is still very good value. Probably one of the best midfielders between like 6 and 7 million. The only thing we haven't touched on really is defensively, and Jamie touched on Timon, who was a midfielder last season, is now a defender. Very attacking, got 5 assists last season, which is okay. I'm actually not that interested because I'm not a massive believer in Stoke defence, really. But I can see why people, I wouldn't begrudge people going for him, to be honest. I don't know, what are your thoughts on Timon?
I think the signing of Flint, that's a positive way to go, especially for Stokes. And I think whenever there's an Australian defender, I think Sotar, that's his name, he comes back from the injury, then Stoke City's defense considerably improves quite a bit. So if, as Jamie mentioned, they are going to play with the back three until Sotar recovers. I think he mentioned Flint at the center of defense and 2 wing, I think 2 central defense, or am I completely wrong in that?
Yeah, central defense.
Yeah, 3. So yeah, if Flint and Sotar can form a partnership at the heart of Stoke's defense, then I think we can go for Timon. Even if Sotar is not fit, you can go for Timon, because I think He's priced at what price?
He's 5.5, and he's a wing. Bear in mind they'll be playing 3 at the back with Wilmot as well, so he'll be pushing on a fair bit.
Yeah, pushing up slot quite a bit. So he can be a really good option. But as I said before, it's quite fixture dependent because we all know how Stoke plays, so it's quite fixture dependent. If there is a sea of green fixtures, then certainly we can go for doubling up of Stoke players.
Yeah, I don't think he was wrong in his prediction of anywhere between 10th and 16th. I think that sounds about right.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts, David?
I think we've covered it pretty much all of it we need to. I just forgot to say about like Baker was like the option that burned me most like when it comes to benching that season. So I'm almost like a bit happy he's not 5 million and that is 6.5 because like he's more of a like serious option and it's harder to bench him because I probably won't make that mistake again. I can't even remember who I was benching him for, but it was like I lost so many points.
It's interesting the psychology behind that, isn't it? Psychologically, you'll be very reluctant to bench a 6.5, or a bit more reluctant to bench a 6.5 million mid. Yeah, I don't blame you for that at all for those bench points.
I think
such a pain.
I think everyone who played last season have been burned by Baker's 1 or 2 games because
or 4.
10.
He has been burned by he has burned quite a few managers, so it's understandable that it's better.
So just don't ever bench him. Just take the 2s and just take the 15s when you get them.
It's like Swift 2.0. Someone in our pod has very different ideas about Swift.
Let's not talk about that anymore.
You give me far too much stick for that. You make too much of that.
Yeah. That's like a year ago now. I'm like, let it go.
Let it go.
I have to start singing soon.
Right. One more team to go. We're nearly there.
Yeah. Yes. The last team we have is Swansea. And our correspondent for Swansea is FPL Duck on Twitter. So let's hear what the thoughts are on Swansea.
Hello, I am the FPL Duck, and I'm your Swansea expert for Gaffr today. I've been asked a few questions about my team for how I can help you get the best out of your Swansea assets this season. So first and foremost, our transfers for this season. The first and most important one that kind of triumphs over everything else is the swap of Flynn Downs for Joe Allen. It's not one that directly impacts the individual players for Gaffr, neither are really good options to have in your team, but the way that it changes the way that our team plays directly consequences every single other player in the team and makes them so much more different as an asset as they did last season. Flynn Downs' biggest problem was that as a defensive midfielder, he would overcommit to pressing, tackling. His reading of the game wasn't the best, so he'd get booked a lot. He would get caught out of position. We'd get counter-attacked. And the way that our tactics work as a system, we'd very much go for the same kind of high-pressing possession footballers like Manchester City, Barcelona. And while they have world-class defensive midfielders like Rodri and Busquets, we have Flynn Downs, who, by all means, is a good young player, but for this kind of system, it's not a good fit. You need an outright defensive player who gives the rest of the team freedom to push forward. And that's where Joe Allen comes in. Reads the game better, doesn't get booked anywhere near as much. His positioning is great. He can play a ball out of defense straight into offense with one key pass. Everything he does is such a better fit for this kind of setup than the system we were using at the start of last year, which would let Matt Grimes play deeper and we'd have a little bit more cover in the defense. Now, this should allow us to start playing with more freedom up forward because Joe Allen tracking back to sit between the centre-backs should give us more defense that'll let us actually, play the kind of attacking possession football that we want instead of just getting trapped, circling the ball around over and over and over again, dominating possession until we get counter-attacked and then, we concede. So generally this should mean, in theory, more clean sheets, more returns for our wing-backs, and as I'll mention later on as I talk about our assets, more involvement for the centre-backs as well in terms of bonus points and returns. The rest of our transfers, Darling, he's going to be nailed at centre-back. He'll play in the middle of a back three, or he'll play as the left man in a back four in a centre-back pairing. Not really a great Gaffr option unless he becomes one of those centre-backs who just picks up bonus points for fun. But because we have so much possession, he's not really going to be doing all that much to win bonus points. So I wouldn't really think he'd be worth it as an option. At the same price, 5.0, you've got Wood, who's just signed, plays on the right. You can either play right centre-back or right wing-back or right-back, depending on how we set up. Probably going to be playing back up to Kyle Norton and Joel Latibodiere at first, or if we sign somebody else, he'll be playing there. We kind of don't really need him as a starter right now, so I just would avoid him entirely. And then lastly, Mady Sorinola, who's been playing at left wing-back in the preseason, or as we play a 4-3-3, he kind of slots into midfield in a 3 on the left. Hasn't really done much in terms of attacking. He's not great at crossing off his left foot either. He's mostly just there to pass the ball around, recycle possession, free up some passing lanes, letting runs come from left back up. They're more to enable players like Manning to come up and overlap with Patterson on the left wing, cut back, score, so on and so forth. Again, 5.0, decent price, but I don't think that is necessarily going to be as an option that just comes right out of the blocks and starts playing fantastic football and just should be in everyone's team. There's a few other options of players that are going to be leaving or potentially coming in. Jay Fulton could be leaving, doesn't really matter for Gaffr. Finn Stevens could be coming in, playing at right wing back in the same role as Ethan Laird or as Cyrus Christie. Marcus Harness from Portsmouth is one that's been linked as well, can play at right wing or right wing back. I think if he signed and got into the team, he'd be a great option at a good price. If he was playing at right wing back, I think they'd probably price him as a midfielder, which would make it a little less fun. And that's all I've got for the transfer window. In terms of pricing for our players, everyone who starts is 5.0, and a couple players who are rotated are 5.0. Anyone who isn't 5.0 in defense is not playing. Ignore them. If I had to pick a best choice, the safest ones who are most nailed are going to be Cabango and Darling at centre-back, but you don't really want centre-backs. I think the highest upside is going to be in either Norton, who's been playing at left centre-back and bombing up, or Manning, who plays at left-back or left wing-back or left centre-back, again, bombs up the field. We tend to not really be going up the right as much since we don't have an attacking right back anymore since Cyrus Christie left. In the preseason as well, you've been seeing not too much out of Sorinola at left wing back. He's kind of been there to enable the other left-sided players, so not that great. I think it'd be a wait and see on a lot of the defence to see who's playing week in, week out. Midfield is a different matter entirely. Patterson's the only option at all. Grimes has freedom now with Joe Allen there. He can go forward more and play to his strengths, but he doesn't really accomplish much anyway. Even with the freedom, I'd have to actually see him get the returns to justify it later on. I wouldn't start with him at all. And Cham at 6.5 is a trap. Just go away, ignore it. Patterson, 18 returns last year at 7.5 is a really good price. He's probably going to keep it up. I can't imagine unless we sign somebody he's going to be dropped. He's going to be playing predominantly more as a wide attacking midfielder, not necessarily a winger, but on the left. He's going to be not directly as involved as Perrault and Obafemi, just on how our tactics function, but he's still going to be there. He's a great price. He'll get returns bonus every game. I recommend him entirely. He's coming back from a knock right now, so he's not going to have a full preseason under his belt, but he should still be starting for game week 1. Then comes the difficult decision of forwards. Obafemi 7.5, Peru 8.5. Obafemi got 15 returns in 20 starts last season. Peru got 26 in 40. Peru is playing in this kind of free role now behind Obafemi. He tends to just make direct runs himself. They pass to him, he runs into space, tries to go on solo efforts and score. If he can't score, because Obafemi is playing more like a dummy runner up top until Peru passes the ball, he's going to have an open man who's wide open and gets a lot of assists for that reason. So Peru is very much going to be involved in everything. He finished the season so strongly with 9 returns in the last 8 games. Tons of bonus, tons of goals. Great option, scores for fun. Obafemi is the cheaper option, has more returns per 90 minute, which, is pretty impressive, all things considered. He is playing as the out-and-out centre-forward in the team, but as our tactics play sort of like a 2-3-5 in possession, he is the man in the middle, but a lot of the time he's there just to tap in cutbacks. He gets passed to by the other players, as a classic centre-forward would, but a lot of the time he's just there making spaces, causing problems, letting the wing-backs to cut inside, get their assists, cross, score as well, enabling Patterson and Perrault to just start absolutely tearing things up. It's a very good system offensively that kind of spreads things around while still letting guys like Obafemi and Perrault score a ton. I think they're great options. I think we're going to score a lot of goals this year. I think we've very much been going more towards an attacking route than we have been even last season. There's more offensive firepower now. The tactics in the preseason have been shifting towards more offense while still having defense. As I've said before, the manager really wants to emulate this kind of Barcelona, Manchester City style. We couldn't with the players we had last season, but he's starting to mould the squad in the direction he wants to be able to play it. And I think that makes Perraud and Obafemi both fantastic options. If you need the extra 1.5 million, sorry, the extra 1 million, Obafemi, absolutely fantastic option. Probably the best 7.5 option in the game. I think there is a case you could make for having both. It's whether or not you want to take the risk on having two Swansea strikers, because, you don't really want to double up from a team unless they're scoring for fun. But, we did end the season scoring goals for fun, and this kind of high-pressing offensive football tends to do really well in the Championship because, the game is moving on. This kind of defensive football doesn't really often have an answer for it, and if you have the players to do it, you do it. It's worked in the past for a lot of teams. So I'm hoping, and a very optimistic guy, that we're going to come like 4th to 6th this season. I don't think we really can match some of the relegated teams, and some of the ones that didn't go up have more resources than we do. They have better players than we do because they've been recently enough relegated. We've been down here for like 4 or 5 years now. But I do think that as we get more comfortable with the new system, we're scoring goals, we're making the right transfers that fix the positions that we have problems in. I think we're onto something. We did finish the season, until we were confirmed out of the playoffs, we were 9 games unbeaten, and then we just played the B team and kind of stopped caring. So we have been in a good position since Christmas, since we started to get the squad as Russell Martin wants, and I think that going forward it would be really optimistic that we could make the playoffs. I think our Gaffr options are fantastically priced. Pretty much anyone in the team who starts, except maybe the goalkeeper and the centre-backs, I think is going to be an option at some point. Our attack is great. Our fullbacks get involved. Even our wide centre-backs start to bomb up on the tactics when we play a back three. There's a lot of potential and upside in this team, and I really think that there is a lot to take and a lot to love for this side. I'm going to be starting with 2 or 3 Swansea players in my starting team. Maybe you will too.
Okay, thank you very much, FPL Duck, for that. And the first thing I'd like to say is, what a lovely voice to listen to. He DM'd me saying he's a voice actor. I can tell. It was great. It was very entertaining. Thanks for that. Yeah, very insightful stuff, particularly around Joe Allen signing, actually, and the tactical implications of that. But in terms of Gaffr, I think basically Swansea, in the back end of last season, they were a team who scored a lot of goals, conceded a lot of goals. So obviously we are going to be looking at their attackers. Fixtures, very good start. Rotherham away, Blackburn at home, Blackpool away, Millwall at home, Luton at home. A pretty good start. And I think we should probably, I know he did talk a fair bit about defenders. I'm personally not interested to start with, although considering they're all 5 million, there may be an option later on further down the line at wing back. Let's just jump straight into Obafemi versus Patterson versus both. David, what do you reckon?
The forwards for Swansea is like a spot that I love both of them because I had both of them in my team. I've probably, for people that have listened to the pod a while, know that I got very lucky and they both got 20 points in the game week, which was amazing. I like both of them as options, but sadly you can only have one at the moment, I think. But if it was possible to have 4 strikers, I probably said this before, but you have both of them. At the moment I have Pukki, Pro and Adebayo on my team, so I have that 7.5 million spot open for Obafemi if he wants to join, but maybe that's too much.
You would love to join.
So it's the difficult thing about with those two is they have different roles that complement each other. I think Obafemi is the forward striker, and Pirro is the number 10. And it's the 1 week Pirro will score 2 and Obafemi will score an assist or nothing, and the next week it's opposite because they had different attacking plays and just the games were different. So it's the price difference that makes the decision hard, because it's a 1 million from Obafemi to Pro, and you'd hope that Obafemi would have similar returns, but we've seen in preseason that Pro is on fire. So at the moment I think Pro, even though it's a bit more expensive, is ahead, but I think that could change throughout the season.
Obafemi's got the nod for me because of that price saving, although I wasn't that actually aware of the pre-season stuff, which makes me think a little bit. I think Obafemi got even more attacking returns than Pirot since he joined. That said, I think they're both brilliant picks. I think Pirot's a great pick. I think Obafemi's potentially a great pick as well. And even though I'm probably going to go with Obafemi, yeah, Pirot's fine. I mean, I do have quite negative feelings about Pirot because the only time I owned him last season was the time where he did nothing. And the other times of the season he was great. It was the period, I think it was before blank game week 30 when there was the FA Cup and a few doubles beforehand. Swansea had a load of fixtures, more fixtures than a lot of the other teams, had the doubles and then played in the blank game week. And Pirot got 0 returns for me in 5-6 games. It was very frustrating. But he is definitely a great pick. So I have Obafemi though. And of course there's Patterson who's a great pick in midfield as well. So I think we're going to want to be owning at least one, maybe even two. Abhishek, who are you leaning towards in the forwards?
I think, as David mentioned, you can start with owning 2 Swansea strikers along with Pookie, judging by the fixtures alone. Yeah. Because you own Adebayo, right? Adebayo has a bit of a mixed bag first 5 fixtures if you compare with Swansea's. So definitely, if somebody wants to go with twin Swansea strikers, if they're not willing to spend the amount that Patterson is this season in the game, then certainly doubling up on Swansea forwards could be an opportunity to make way into that Swansea lineup, because in that way you cover all your bases. Because defensively Swansea is not good, we all know that, until and unless anything happens. And apart from Patterson, nobody really attracts from the midfield. So if we are going by the fixtures alone, then certainly doubling up on both Swansea players can be an option as well.
Yeah, I think one thing I also thought about while you said that is it makes more sense to have both strikers than to have Pirot and Patterson, because with team structure you don't want the 4.5 striker, but you definitely could do with the 4.5 midfielder if you want 2 attackers from Swansea. If you're set on that, I wouldn't go just the 2 of them. I would just either go 3. If maybe that's a bit extreme, but I wouldn't have Patterson over Obafemi.
Yeah,
personally.
The difficulty with that is that there are other really good strike options as well. So you're basically putting all your eggs in one basket, which is one of those that it's risk reward, isn't it? It's riskier because if Swansea disappoint us, then and don't score as many goals as we think they will, then you're going to be behind those who might have gone for a Victor or a Vyman or an Adebayo instead. But you do have a route to the strikers around that price range, though. 1 million up, and you're back to Victor again. It's not the same in midfield, I think. Yeah, I think that basically covers it. Anything else to add, David?
Yeah, we haven't talked about much of defense, but the only player I would I've looked at from the defense of Swansea is Sorinola at 5. He's been talked up by FPL Duck in our group chat, so just be aware of him being quite cheap even though it's Swansea. So because they play 3 at the back as well, don't they, with their attacking wing backs?
Yeah,
so he will play at the wing back.
Yeah, and Joel's favorite player, James Patterson. We have to mention him. He's Joel's very favorite player.
Yeah, I mean, I had issues with him being injured and stuff and going missing towards the end of the season, but he's a very good option, I think. He's going to do what he did last season. Probably a lot of assists more than goals, but yeah, he's a good option.
Would you say his price is justified?
Yeah, 7.5's about right for me. I think that's perfect. Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, I think that is everything, and that brings the pod to an end. So the plan is, Our next pod, we're going to be covering the teams. We're going to be recording on Thursday night, and we're going to be covering the teams that we were unable to get fans for. So there'll be teams like Rotherham and Wigan, and there's a few others. A lot of the kind of lesser teams, and there are a couple of bigger teams like Watford. So we're going to cover those off on Thursday, and that will probably be out on Friday or Saturday, and then on Sunday we're going to record the final team preview with the remaining videos, and then there might be a couple of teams left over that we just do ourselves, and then we'll do in the midweek before the season starts, we're going to do like our drafts. Probably wouldn't say final drafts because we're allowed to change them up until the deadline, but our drafts, game week 1 drafts and boosts, a couple of 3 or 4 days before the start of the season. So that is the plan, and yeah, we're nearly there. We're nearly at the start of the season. I'm getting excited now. It's going to be fun.
Yeah.
And yeah, last thing to say is thank you very much again to everybody who's contributed to this video. We really do appreciate it. It's really enhanced our kind of pre-season content ahead of the season. It's been fantastic. So yes, thank you very much. And all that remains to say is until next time. Goodbye from me.
Ha det bra.
Namaste from me.
Great, thank you very much, Darren, for your thoughts on Blackburn. I think they are quite an interesting team. Let's start that again. I've just lost it. Okay, thank you very much for that, Darren. Really useful stuff. And I think Blackburn are. Oh no, it's just not going well.